It's Subversion!
Templates can be found everywhere. That is the reason light novels feel the same, sports shows play out in the exact same fashion, and harems have the obligatory bitch episode. This is what helps us categorize a series by genre or separate them by demographic. Did you notice how every time something unexpected happens in a show, almost everybody rushes to label it subversion or deconstruction? It's as if all it takes is to have a twist of any kind. If you cheapen the term so much, then you are left with only two types of shows, the ones that are predictable and the ones that are deconstructions.
They're actually trying to make a canon Broly.
Nobody wanted this!
Shut the fuck up!
It's Subversion! Toriyama's always known for not giving people what they actually ask for!
And yet predictable doesn't always mean average, in the same way deconstruction doesn't always mean great. Big Order was the definition of randomness, and Mayoiga was subverting the expectations of its own premise. There were twists and turns every 5 minutes, but were they enough to make them good series? The plebs will say yes, but then again they will say it for anything they have the feels for.
I was fangasming at just the way it looked.
There is Subversion, and then there is this. Toriyama announces he's going to unveil a brand new Dragon Ball Z movie, but instead, he unzips his pants and just starts pissing all over the audience. Get it? It's Subversion! You didn't see that coming! And walks off stage. And then the urine-soaked fans of the franchise stand there. That man is a genius.
If you like Broly, then you're probably going to enjoy the fan service.
A twist by itself means nothing, it's what you do with it. And what you can do with it is making it lead to something else. Meaning, a deconstruction of any formula needs to be eventually reconstructed into a different formula, with what we call subversion being the transition period. For example, One Punch Man is often called a deconstruction of superheroes, but the twist becomes apparent in the first 5 minutes and it doesn't lead anywhere at the end. That's why it's just a satire, and anyone who calls it anything more than that is a tasteless casual. For something to be called a deconstruction, its genre in the beginning must be completely different from the genre it has at its ending. And even then, you don't always get a good show, especially when the new formula is worse than the formula it was reconstructed from. A notorious example is Zetsu no Tempest, which begins as a metaphysical mystery, and after a magical reset midway, turns into a romantic comedy. The show as a whole is garbage, but everybody will agree that the first half is intriguing, while the second one has nothing to remember it for. In contrast to that, School Days transitions from a forgettable rom-com into a most cathartic violent ending. You can argue that the twist came too late, but that is how a harem story ends realistically, and it's unforgettable. Another way to tell if a deconstruction is done well is to see if it has a smooth transition phase. Madoka Magica, for example, is an awful deconstruction, because the subversion happens instantly on episode 3 and is undone just as quickly with the magical reset at the final episode. Neon Genesis, on the other hand, is a great deconstruction, since the characters become gradually more unstable, and even when they are given the chance to magically reset everything in the last episode, they refuse. And the last way to tell if a deconstruction is done well is a clear and permanent difference in tone once the transition is over. One Piece, for example, has a very dramatic tone during the Marineford battle, but as soon as that arc was over, the tone went back to the usual stuff. That is not a deconstruction because the subversion did not have lasting effects. The slow transition of the original Dragon Ball, on the other hand, from a comical adventure into a fighting shonen, counts as a deconstruction even if it lasted hundreds of episodes. And if some wonder how can this be true when it's considered to be the series that established the generic fighting shonen formula everybody's copying thereafter, it's because you're thinking of Dragon Ball Z, which does not count as a deconstruction, since by the time it began, the transition in the original formula was over. And now that we established what a deconstruction is, let's clarify why so many people use it out of context. Mostly because they are stupid, but it's also because they misplace it with novelty. In their minds, a deconstruction can only be something that has never been done before, which is a pretty dumb thing to believe, since nothing can be considered completely original and revolutionary. Hitman Reborn is also a series that began as a comedy and then turned into a fighting shonen. It is a deconstruction, even if Dragon Ball did it before. And it's also not a good deconstruction because the writing is awful. Everything derives from something else that came before it, either as inspiration or as direct tribute. The first time we encounter or think about something is never the first time something popped into existence, at least not entirely, and what is original for one person can easily be derivative for another more experienced person. What I mean is that a deconstruction is a fact and not a subjective impression. It is what it is and not your opinion of it being one. As I said, even if a show is a deconstruction, it does not necessarily mean it is good. It just makes it more compelling because you're not getting the same thing throughout its duration. If there is a season with 40 series and only one of them changes along the way, it will be standing out and it will be far more memorable. Aside from that, novelty doesn't mean anything by itself. It only works in comparison to other series, and it doesn't necessarily make things more engaging if you are watching a dozen deconstructions at the same time. Cabaneri looking way too similar with Attack on Titan. It has the same director and it is animated by the same studio, but it's otherwise not based on any work by the guy who made the Attack on Titan manga. It's a weird situation where it is not an adaptation, yet calling it an original project is a stretch. I know that down to it they are both following the same template, which was not established by Attack on Titan. The same template was used in Blue Gender, for example, which is way older, and if we count movies, there was also Soylent Green, from which the twist of what the origin of the monsters is originated from. Finally, let it be known that it is a term which gets misused consciously, even by those who know all that. It sounds unimportant when we say that we like something because we hadn't experienced it before. That's not much of a justification to excuse why we consider a show to be amazing. On the other hand, it sounds much better when we make it sound like it's something universally profound and thought-provoking, even when it's not that special for large crowds, as it is for certain individuals.
It's Subversion!
This chapter is why Ishida is such a damn good mangaka. It's making me want to Furycraft.
This guy on Reddit asked if Sword Art Online is a thought-provoking series. This can be a tricky question if you are a rookie. Just look at a strict definition of the term. Thought-provoking is anything that provokes thoughts, and it so happens that anything can cause that, no matter how minor it is. If someone is brainstorming hard enough, he can find a million things to ponder about something most of us wouldn't be able thinking 10 words to write down.
Once again, Ishida using tarot cards, most likely. It's very, very, very obvious. I could be wrong, but it's very obvious.
But thinking requires effort, something that doesn't come on its own. There has to be some sort of motivation. It can be material gain, or it can be what is known as a paradigm shift, something that makes you think differently thanks to its presentation. In the realm of fiction, we like to group everything into categories, break it down to stereotypes, or define it with tropes. When we encounter something that doesn't fit well within the categorization in our minds, it will take us by surprise and make us wonder why it differs, and that alone is enough to make something thought-provoking.
You see, once again, the iconic symbolism of the flowers. I'm guessing the flowers might be symbolized as loneliness or something.
Shock factor can be thought-provoking since it messes with the audience being accustomed to seeing the good guys as surviving, or to not being betrayed and tortured for being kind and forgiving.
Well, subtle hidden foreshadowing in his drawings. You could probably pull out a lot of symbolism from that one panel and understand what the real meaning of this chapter is, or probably future chapters.
The premise of a story can be thought-provoking because it has a cool-sounding concept that makes you wonder how a society functions if things were different.
That looks like some form of Jewish star. She's father's Jewish?
The anticipation for what will happen in later episodes of an action-adventure mystery can do that, because it leads to theory crafting.
Ishida's like that. He'll put a symbol down and it's some form of meaning to the chapters. You see 5 bread sitting on this tray, and then underneath that, you see 3 drinks. If you count this all up, this is 8.
Even a simple thing such as an unusual setup of a romantic comedy can be enough for making you think outside the box.
I don't know what the book says on it. Probably some form of symbolic meaning to that book. I know books in this series also foreshadow events.
Of course, this is something that mostly happens with newcomers who don't have much experience in a medium and their categorization is fairly simple. Veteran viewers and readers won't be so easily surprised, most likely because they already encountered something similar in the past and have already gone through the procedure of thinking things through.
I just did my personal research. Dude, this goes so much with what was going on at the beginning of this chapter.
Nobody's born smart or becomes an elitist overnight. It's a slow procedure of constant small surprises and paradigm shifts. I was not always the snob I am today. I've been a fan of fighting shonen in the past, and I had my share of pretentious overthinking when it came to Neon Genesis. The difference with your plebs is that I have moved past that stage and I find nothing thought-provoking in what the tasteless casuals consider masterpieces these days.
An upside down 4, so we're obviously dealing with a reverse 4 tarot card. It's fucked up. Very fucked up.
The reason I make videos is so I can provoke your thoughts and speed up the improvement of your brain chakra, and thus make you stop considering shit like Sword Art Online as thought-provoking.
That's so fucked up. It's so sad. It's so funny, but I know it's fucked up. Like, we all know that's fucked up so much. Like, right there, that is so sad. It's so sad, but it's so funny.
It's Subversions! Subversion!
Doki Doki Literature Club is a nice little idea with a memorable moment or two, but doesn't really have anywhere to go once the rabbit's out of the hat. It's not wise to stick around for too long after the big punchy moment. It's one of those Five Nights at Freddy's arrangements, a game designed not to be played and enjoyed, but to be reacted to on a stream or hilarious YouTube video. Because God knows it's hard to amuse 500 baboons at once without investing in a banana truck, psychological horror, disturbing, subversion of dating sim written on them. And the game has been given away, so all it can do now is try to psych you out by drifting into the faintly lame territory of the video game creepypasta. Cheap jump scares of the used tampons in my sherry trifle.
Subverting expectations, not for the sake of the narrative, but to subvert expectations.
In Undertale, I was invested in the world and the story, and in this case there doesn't seem to be much of a world left to be invested in, which rather took me out of the whole experience once and for all.
It's Subversion!
Manages to break the mold of what we've come to expect from the genre, and how it skillfully subverts our expectations.
Unlike nothing I've ever read before.
Two things happened in early June of 2018. One was the cancellation of an offending racist light novel after pressure by the very people it was insulting. The other was the radical change of how American beauty contests will be held in the future, since now apparently bikinis are offending to liberated women, when initially they were hailed as women being finally free to wear whatever they want.
The idea of quirks is interesting and something new that we haven't seen in anime.
Both of these are part of how much more oversensitive are people today than they were just a few years ago, when it was normal to expect offending racism in light novels and pure objectification of women in beauty contests. Once again it is proven how anything can be offending to a generation of self-entitled special snowflakes. When almost everybody judges things based on how he feels at the moment, and he happens to feel really miserable with his life and constantly seeks escapism in deliberately idealized fiction, then there is absolutely nothing left that can be non-offending for everyone. There will always be those who are offended with something no matter what it is, thus there is no point in trying to make something non-offending.
The smartly made Deku's new quirk a double-edged sword. Using it at full strength without the proper training can cause irreparable damage to Deku's body.
Unlike nothing I've ever read before.
The real issue here is, if you change things drastically, don't they stop being what they are and become something entirely different? Why call them light novels, when they are no longer allowed to be the sadistic empowerment fantasies of talentless misanthropic beta losers who are rehashing the same tropes over and over again for quick bucks? If you change a single element out of everything I mentioned, they stop being light novels.
It isn't just another battle to show who's more capable in combat. It's a battle of moralities and beliefs.
Using the same logic, if bikinis are taken out of beauty contests, and they become more about fully dressed fat ugly women talking about politics, why call them beauty contests? They are no longer mindless entertainment about beautiful women undressing in front of thousands of thirsty men. They become something completely different. So instead of calling them beauty contests, something they no longer are, just call them ugly debates.
Deku hasn't had many winning battles, and the wins he has had have usually come at a great cost to his physical health.
Unlike nothing I've ever read before.
This is also why the term subversion, a word many are using as a positive characteristic, quickly becomes meaningless. Madoka Magica was hailed as a deconstruction of magical girls, only to kickstart a long line of dark magical girl shows, and now the whole thing is nothing special. Sword Art Online did the same by beginning the really original, not really, idea of people getting trapped in video games, only for dozens of other series to copy the exact same premise, and now it's just another overused idea.
Your life shouldn't be shaped by other people's perspective. Instead, you can choose the path of who you want to be by breaking the mold.
Every shonen is copying the once one-of-a-kind Dragon Ball, and every school comedy is still using the same ideas of the once groundbreaking Urusei Yatsura. Trying to break that mold is only going to create a new mold. Therefore, there is no merit in subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations. There is no point in calling something amazing just because you have seen nothing quite like it before. Being amazed at something because it feels new or different to you does not make it amazing. Chances are it's not one of a kind, but rather the first of many very similar series, all of which belong in their own subcategory and are far from special.
Even the most powerful of individuals has a very clear weakness. This right here is an example of masterful storytelling.
Unlike nothing I've ever read before.
For the same reason, trying to fix something by drastically cancelling and changing stuff about it only serves in stopping what it is. you might as well treat them as something entirely different than grouping them all as the same thing. Let's not do the same crap they used to do in earlier decades, when they were placing hentai next to cartoons in video stores.
This series breaks the genre's mold.
Unlike nothing I have ever read before.
It's Subversion!
So I found a guy who was disappointed with the twist of the king in Attack on Titan not being who he thought he would be. First I thought, that was supposed to be a twist? Then I remembered I already have a video on plot twists that would benefit from an update. So here it is. The 10 rules of what is a plot twist and how it's used properly. Number 1. A twist is supposed to change our perception of something or someone. And that a change is supposed to stick, not be undone after a while, and everything is back to how it was before, thus rendering the twist meaningless. Number 2. The twist must be based on pre-existing information. In order to be successful, it must not come out of nowhere in the sense it's adding new information on the spot. What was used for the twist must be based on something you already know of before the scene of the twist begins. If you add more shit for the sake of making a twist in that exact moment, it's an asspull, thus it's not a good twist because there was no foreshadowing to it. Number 3. Even if there is foreshadowing, a twist is far more meaningful when there is a decent amount of time allocated to the build-up before it happens. Just because it doesn't happen in the exact same scene we learn of something, doesn't mean it's fine if it happens in the exact next scene. Rushing to get to the plot twist in a single episode is taking away most of its meaning. Number 4. For a twist to be successful, your perception of something or someone must change towards finding that thing or that person more interesting than they were before the twist. It must be adding excitement and curiousness to see more, not taking them away by demystifying them or making them mundane. Number 5. For a twist to be successful, the tone shift must not be too drastic. Jumping from a cheery comedy to an edgy drama in a matter of seconds is cringy no matter how good the idea behind the twist actually is. Number 6. A good twist is not reshuffling roles and calls it a day. That is not a twist, because as a whole nothing really changed. It's just a lazy gimmick for the sake of continuing doing the exact same shit with a different person in the same position. Reshuffling the same ideas with a different face is not good writing. Number 7. Twists are not supposed to exist just for the sake of subverting expectations. If the only way a writer can think of for making you care is by messing with your expectations all the time, you don't have a good story, you have a clusterfuck. Twists must never become a self-purpose. They are means to tell a story about interesting characters in an interesting setting. If you can't do that and you only resort to knee-jerk reactions, then you suck as a writer. Number 8. Plot twists should be far from each other. If you keep abusing them to the point there just has to be one in every chapter or episode, then they lose their impact. Each one of them is supposed to change something, so give them room to see the change before you do it again. Number 9. Plot twists must not happen right at the end just for the sake of ending with a bang. They are fine as the culmination of everything that happened earlier, meaning they were foreshadowed and bring closure, but not when they change the status quo, open a whole new set of storylines, and then end with a sequel bait just for the heck of it. That's lazy writing by those who think Lost Impressions should be all about leaving the audience gasping right before the end credits instead of providing closure. And number 10. One twist is not supposed to undo another twist, such as having you gasping at the revelation of your best buddy being actually your brother who gets killed in the second book, only to have you gasping again at the third book where you are told he's not your brother, and he's not dead, and he's evil. What the fuck, Aragon?
It's Subversion!
You didn't see that coming?
Cliffhangers. Cliffhanger central. Like, you should always expect a cliffhanger in this series where you're like, fuck, I want to know, and you just gotta wait till next week. If there's one thing this writer knows what to do, it's definitely those cliffhangers. Like, those cliffhangers definitely make you want to read the next chapter and find out what is about to happen next.
You didn't see that coming?
Many have been saying that The Promised Neverland does not have that excitement it once had. what really drew in so many people into the series was the way the writer was able to give us a cliffhanger every single chapter and make it to where we were so into it, we were tensed up, and there was so much suspense as the, chapters continue to come out, we didn't really know what to expect. And I feel like this is one of the big problems that the series is currently facing. Every single chapter ends off in a cliffhanger. We've all kind of grown accustomed to this. We have all become very aware that The Promised Neverland will always have a cliffhanger. Because of every single week ending off with a cliffhanger, many have now come to expect that the cliffhanger is just there to be there for just a troll reason or just to make you read the next chapter, even though nothing really major would happen. The Promised Neverland has kind of lost its steam because the writer was thriving off of the cliffhangers, but they're no longer as good. You expect that there's not really going to be much crazy things happening next week, so it's downward spiral right now, where it's not gaining any popularity, and many are not really excited for it anymore. He needs to figure out a way to spice it up and give us something that doesn't just rely on the way a chapter ends.
It's Subversion!
Most of the nonsense you hear about a certain show being different because it breaks the mold, or is refreshing, or subverts what you came to expect out of something, often comes down to an abuse of the term that defines something. For example, the definition of an isekai is simply when people from our world go to a different world. It doesn't go any further than that. The problem arises when a very specific subgenre is treated as if it covers the entire genre. For example, what most people consider an isekai nowadays is in reality a very specific subgenre that has been copied to death in light novels and has replaced the actual definition in most viewers' minds. Nowadays, an isekai is defined as a male otaku loser who gets transported to a generic fantasy setting that has a lot of video game terminology, where he quickly becomes overpowered and creates a harem. That's way too specific, and yet most viewers have generalized it to be the actual definition. The most ignorant amongst them take it even further and treat any show with a fantasy setting and gaming terminology as an isekai. Thus, all of a sudden, anime such as Danmachi and Goblin Slayer count as isekais. And that's where the abuse of subversion comes in. In reality, you can never subvert a core genre because the definition is simple enough and wide enough to include most of everything. I mean, how can you break the formula of an actual isekai? By not transporting people to a different world? Then it's not an isekai. Same thing goes with the difference between fantasy and science fiction. One uses magic, the other uses technology. It doesn't go any further than that. And in case it has both, they just call it science fantasy. That's all there is to the definition. You cannot subvert that. Going back to anime, when you hear someone calling My Hero Academia or One Punch Man a subversion of fighting shonen, what exactly is there to subvert? Do you know how simple the definition of a fighting shonen really is? As long as you have boys who are often fighting, you got yourself a fighting shonen. It doesn't go any further than that. What everyone wrongfully calls a subversion is anything that slightly deviates from the Naruto formula. A boy that starts off at the bottom and wants to be the best at something and constantly trains and fights as he goes up the ranks. The best thing you can say is that something is not an exact Naruto clone, which by itself is a generic underdog plot you can find in any sports series in general, from which you can also not deviate without turning it into a different genre. So what does that make all those shows that are often called the Subversions and Deconstructions for doing things differently? To the most part, those are just dark takes. That is, not letting the main characters have it their way all the time. Everyone is so used to seeing the protagonists win in every fight and nobody they love dying, so when a show comes along with defeats or deaths of lovable characters or negative consequences of any sort, it's enough to label it a deconstruction. It's unlike anything we've seen before. You didn't see that coming. It blew your mind. The thing is, in most of those shows, the consequences are not permanent, since they find some bullshit way for taking them away eventually. This is why a show is not deconstructing if it goes back to how it was at first. But even any show that doesn't go back to how it used to be is still not a deconstruction. All it does is stop being one genre or subgenre and becomes a different genre or subgenre. So it's a lose-lose situation.
It's Subversion!
Subversion is a weird concept.
It's Subversion! Subversion!
Our main character is reincarnated with some incredible powers, being basically a god. The show is your classic power fantasy. I've honestly never noticed a show that actively does this.
Never really seen done before.
The show does a good job of knowing when to subvert our expectations and when not to. Starting off with Subversions. Subversions at every corner. So the first part of this anime is basically one giant subversion. They are subverted and spiced up
for not giving people what they actually ask for.
The show's smart use of subversions is not something we've seen yet.
We had not seen up until this point.
The show doesn't heavily rely off of these subversions. All about subverting every possible expectation, just subverting everything imaginable. The ultimate subversion of isekai anime.
Get it? It's Subversion!
Slime is by far my favorite isekai of this season. Sorry, Goblin Slayer.
In a way that no one expects, which have never been seen before. It's like nothing we've ever seen before.
Does subverting our expectations make for a more enjoyable watching experience than watching what's not a subversion? Take something that everyone knows and loves as a cliche, then flip it on its head. That is, until that joke is done so much that subverting that cliche becomes a cliche in itself. So the only way to subvert expectations now is by going back to the original form.
That man is a genius. It's Subversion!
In my never-ending search for more ways to make fun of Gayfoot, I found this guy who thinks that the thing that holds back the show from being great is its lack of world building. If it gets more of that, then it will definitely be better. Which is a lie, because the show is called My Hero Academia, and the premise is about one guy, one-punching enemies, and taking part in school competitions. This is what made so many to like it in the beginning. Adding stuff to that premise is only moving the show away from what people like about it. It's something that has happened with a lot of shows that continue past a point where they lose whatever people liked about them and became something different. Change is not inherently bad, but it is alienating for most people who seek comfort instead of something that will expand their horizons. Gayfoot and most other anime are mainstream shit. They don't aim to subvert your expectations. The fans are the ones who keep saying that because they don't want to admit they are watching mainstream shit. Gayfoot can't become better by becoming different. It has already proven that with Season 4, which not many liked because it was different. It ditched the old cast in favor of a whole bunch of new characters, which is not what people wanted more of. They wanted the old characters. What is the point of having world building, which means even more new characters, when people simply want the same few characters going to the same one school? That's what the show was made to be. That's why everybody was watching it for. Therefore, there is no point in doing things differently. All Horikoshi shit has to do is offer more of the same shit, because at the end of the day, that is what made Gayfoot successful. By being something that does not skillfully subvert our expectations. It was Dick writing the superhero fad, which was the most mainstream shit you can imagine. People wanted more superheroes, and they got them. And they watched those superheroes for Superman and Batman, not the progressive shit that is Supergirl and Batwoman, which do things differently.
It's Subversion!
This is apparently not a remake. This is actually a sequel to the original Higurashi anime. We were all under the impression that this was going to be a remake. It was even advertised as a remake. Why would you advertise this series for newcomers if you're straight up gonna spoil a plot point that wasn't revealed until Season 2 of the original story? I'm just like, what are you doing?
It's Subversion!
And it's not just an average spoiler either. It's a huge spoiler.
Not giving people what they actually ask for.
Why? Why would you do that? I'm so stunned and dumbfounded by the news and information.
Get it? It's Subversion!
The advertisement of this was so misleading that I feel like what came out yesterday is going to turn off so many fans of Higurashi. It's straight up going to make many not even want to watch it anymore.
You didn't see that coming!
It's going to really ruin your enjoyment of the story. And I'm just like, why?
It's Subversion!
I'm so bugged by the advertisement because now if you want to watch this story, you got to actually go out of your way and watch the original series and the OVA. And you're not going to obviously want to go out of your way and watch something that feels very dated, something very old.
That man is a genius. It's Subversion!
Let's talk a bit about how everyone feels when their favorite show gets axed, regardless of what scapegoats they use for excusing it. The most basic emotion would be sadness, caused by losing the thing you liked. It's far worse when the thing was unpopular, because at least the popular ones have a far bigger audience, are far more positive, and their potential is far more promising. Unpopular ones don't have many fans, there is a lot of negativity from outside watchers who keep saying the title sucks, and the charts keep showing the inevitable cancellation. Imagine how soul-wrenching it is to like something that almost everyone and everything are telling you to give up. Especially if you are one of those self-entitled millennials who gets offended over nothing.
Do you not have faith in Tabata?
It was easier for me because I am not a snowflake who needs a safe space 24/7, but I still went through a much less frustrating period where I was progressively losing everything I liked in anime. I grew up watching mecha and muscular men. That's all I ever wanted from the medium. But times changed and the snot youngsters with smartphones no longer liked that. They wanted high schools and isekais, and considered beta loser crybabies to be relatable. I too felt sad and alienated as time went on, and everything became modern. The only reason I still bother is because I am a critic and a snob who is content with telling you why the shit I like is better than the shit you like.
Trust in Horikoshi.
But not many are as dedicated and smart as I am. In fact, I'm the only one, and the majority reacts differently. Some, for example, get so disappointed that they decide never to get attached to a title until it gets an adaptation. Suppose because only the worthy ones get an adaptation, or the popularity explodes with adaptations. But that's counterproductive, because if no one gets attached to new titles, then nothing will become popular or profitable enough to get an adaptation. This is not what the industry wants you to do. It wants you to keep supporting something regardless of knowing it's not popular and it will be cancelled at any moment. It's soul-wrenching and you have to suffer through it in hopes of helping it stay afloat.
I have faith in Horikoshi.
If you and a few others keep pressing on, then maybe you will manage to save it until it blows up in popularity. You need to have faith it will get better. And that is why every subforum is a cult where you have to be a believer and trust in the mangaka to do better. It's why in their desperation, a lot of people think that reality is only what you make of it. Facts don't matter, reason doesn't matter, the truth doesn't matter, everything is a piece of paper that can be interpreted however the fuck you want to. And if you don't comply with how I view reality, you will be kicked out. It's the only thing they can do when they know the inevitable is coming to bite them in the ass, and they keep ignoring it.
I have a lot of faith in Horikoshi as a writer.
Because what other options do you have besides giving up, like this guy here? He was bored with the same old shit of other titles. He finally found something different to maintain his interest, and the result was non-stop harassment, constant frustration, and eventual disappointment when he realized popularity is all that matters, not what he likes. He can either be part of the group that follows the same old shit, or he can fuck off, because everything that is different gets the axe. Therefore, what's the point in being invested in anything that is not mainstream when you know they are going to cancel it? If you don't have faith, you got nothing.
Throw the word faith.
It's Subversion!
Normal manga, in a lot of ways it's written, you would have the entire class around Ruri start to, bully her. They would pick on her, point out her horns, say she may is a freak or ugly, whatever. You would see things like that. You would literally see in a lot of manga, and you have probably seen it if you have read any form of school-type manga, you would definitely see that if anyone is different, bullying, etc. And so, that's not happening. That actually has not happened whatsoever in this manga. In fact, like I said, it's very relaxed, it's very chill, and because of that, it breaks the mold. It's actually breaking the mold of the normal tropes and cliches.
It's Subversion!
In this thread, someone was asking if others did not bother with Beastars because of what they heard about it. Beastars is not a mainstream type of story. Very few people would care about it without a heavy marketing push by the industry and the community. And even then it didn't make much of a difference. Despite winning Crunchyroll awards and being constantly promoted as a unique series with depth and whatever excuses they make up for it, it never became popular. Even the guy who made the thread admits that he only checked it out of boredom. Most of the replies he got state the vast majority of people don't care or like what it's all about. The same thing happened with far more catastrophic results in Samurai 8. It was too different, there was not a big enough audience for it, and on top of that most Naruto fans did not like the idea of Kishimoto abandoning a successful franchise that was still ongoing through Boruto, and beginning a completely new one that was not following anything on the checklist of must-haves when you publish something on Shonen Jump. People didn't want Samurai 8 before it came out, and didn't care after it began its publication. Another example is the latest brilliant idea Marvel Comics had with promoting more and more queer-bait comics. There never was an audience for such a thing. Most queers are not reading comics, most casual readers stopped reading comics, and the hardcores are given more and more reasons to stop reading because of how modern storytellers keep destroying everything they liked and supported for decades. It's plain counterproductive to alienate the established audience or not generate new audience. If there is no demand for something, then it doesn't matter how much you supply the market with it. But wait, you might say, what about taking risks in hopes of something new hitting the market and becoming super successful? How do you know there is no need for something if you don't try it? Fads change all the time, and unless you take risks by selling something new, then what you are selling now may one day be out of fashion and you will be out of the game. That is a wonderful concept, and it's something everyone should be trying out from time to time. The thing is, risks are not for dying businesses. They are for those who are already rich and successful and want to branch out from what is already selling a lot. If you are part of a dying industry, there is little incentive in taking risks. If you are rich and something new you try out doesn't sell, you lose everything you invested, but still have enough to keep going with what still sells successfully. If on the other hand the sales are not doing well, a single failure is enough to finish you off completely. And sure, it's easier to give it all in one last push than waiting to slowly go bankrupt, because what used to sell no longer sells. Kishimoto failed with Samurai 8, but he can always go back to making money from Naruto merchandise. What the hell can the creators of Beastars or the queer-bait Marvel comics do if they don't sell? They are not rich and popular from what I know, and physical media are dying fast. Kishimoto can survive by selling headbands and t-shirts and crappy fighting games. He's no longer dependent on the manga. Marvel can seemingly survive by dropping the comics and making more superhero movies. Although the way things are going, the newest movies are not going to make much money because the wokeness, the streaming services, and the epidemic are killing the cinema industry. Feedback is very important every time you want to take a risk. You see the reactions of the people and you adjust accordingly. Because down to it, if not many people care about something, then whatever you're doing is a vanity project because you're doing it just for yourself. Or it's a hobby, something you do because you like it and not because you want to make a lot of money out of it. A hobbyist shows dedication in a medium, unlike a businessman who only cares about your money or a narcissist who only cares about himself. I consider myself a hobbyist, someone who deals with anime and its horrible community out of dedication. Yes, I am also making some money out of it, but if money is what I care about the most, then I would be paying attention to the feedback, I would be deriding everything that comes out, and I would be making 10 times as much by lying to you all. I didn't do that, which is also why I am not taking any risks. The book I wrote and my videos, even the paid requests, are about whatever I like and can be helpful to all of you. I make them out of dedication and present them as free education, not because they sell. Kishimoto was a narcissist when he made Samurai 8. The feedback was clearly indicating that it wouldn't sell, it had nothing to offer to the medium because of how badly made it was, but he kept doing it anyways because it was his dream. Of course, he was shut down eventually because the magazine he was publishing his work in is run by businessmen who care about money and not artistic integrity. As for the queer-bait Marvel comics, they are both made and managed by narcissists. They don't care about selling, they don't listen to feedback, and they certainly don't try to be helpful with the libtard bullshit they are promoting. They are just making comics about themselves, which is why nobody but themselves likes whatever they make. And that is why, once again, I am better than all of them. You should listen only to me, you should buy my book, you should give me your money, so I can keep telling you I am so much better than all of you stinking plebs, because I'm not a narcissist.
It's Subversion!
Stories that focus on deconstruction can be some of the best that fiction has to offer. It can also be stupid, pretentious, and completely miss the point of the very thing that it's deconstructing. Deconstructed. Since I lack any imagination and my entire perception of reality comes from social media, video games, and crappy anime, the only way I can imagine something working from a realistic perspective is to make it as dark and twisted as possible. Deconstructed. A writer can't simply make their deconstruction dark. No, they need to make the story edgy too. Nothing says realistic deconstruction of every kind of violence quite like the sense that the author is into that kind of thing. Deconstructed. The best way to deconstruct the chosen one is to make them evil for no good reason, or make everyone else around them evil for no good reason. Deconstructed. Is the reason the Empire loses to the inferior rebel forces because the Emperor kills all of his generals for failure, resulting in critical brain drain? Again, these require too much thought. Instead, I'll deconstruct the evil Empire cliche by having a couple of guys in the Empire be okay dudes or something. See? Now it's all shades of gray and complex and deep. Deconstructed. Did I not actually deconstruct anything? Did I not actually dig down and take it apart to show the audience how it would really work? See, that doesn't matter. Everyone else is writing edgy deconstructions, so I want to jump on that bandwagon to show everyone just how smart I am. Deconstructed. I just want to use the label to make myself look edgy and transgressive, even as I churn out the same slop that everyone else is doing, just themed differently. Deconstructed. Gotta be the next one to set the trend. And it's so easy, too. All you need to do is subvert the audience's expectations just a little, and someone on the internet will call it a deconstruction. Since the two are interchangeable, it makes it easy to claim the label of deconstruction, even if not a single cliche is taken apart and interrogated in the entire story. Deconstructed. If my story isn't a miserable edge fest full of gratuitous nudity, pointless glorified violence, and needless cynicism, then how can people even take it seriously? People don't enjoy good stories after all. They only enjoy watching everything they like about a story get torn to pieces in a storm of juvenile edgelord misanthropy. Deconstructed.
It's Subversion!
Some days ago I had a long chat with a guy on Reddit who, just like me, was very disappointed with modern anime and in specific isekai. Both of us had also written a fantasy story and eventually we exchanged links for checking out each other's work. He found the first part of my book to be safe, nothing special about it, and that means I will spend the rest of the video in making fun of his story, which I found it to be joyless. The topic we ended up having was indirectly the relativism of fun, how people have different tastes and like different things, and by extension they have a different idea regarding what counts as better. My idea of better is anti-escapism. Since fiction is by definition a form of escapism, the way I separate good fiction from bad fiction starts from self-critique. It makes it educational by not giving clear moral high ground to a specific faction and allows mental growth. His idea of better was essentially taking out all the fun. Because fun is stupid and ruins a story, so it needs to be removed completely, leaving only the information. Like a serious historical documentary that needs to be stripped of all emotion. No comedy, no fan service, no banter, no naughty thoughts. And while you're at it, no dialogue, no strong support cast, and no clear objective because that would ruin the travel guide of a book he wrote. It's a joyless story because he didn't like my book. Back to the debate of relativism. People like different things, which is why not all isekai are the same. Most are your generic power fantasies about a dork gamer gaining hacks powers and forming a harem inside the video game, but some others are slice of life or civilization building. When some watchers prefer those over typical power fantasies for virgin gamers, they basically have a different taste than that of the majority. Which begs the question, am I making videos about what counts as good, or about what I consider good, and which is not true for most others? If you don't like my book, whatever you say is wrong. Who am I to say the Tower of God is an awful anime if the majority loves it? Who am I to say that there is no tension when those who like it insist that a lizard chick looking at you is the most thrilling thing imaginable? It comes down to what the majority likes. So if the majority thinks a lizard chick looking at you is the most thrilling thing imaginable, my standards for what counts as thrilling don't reflect what the majority thinks. And that is why for most people, the opinion of the majority is the most creditable metric. Not that of the critics, because they don't represent the average viewer. The guy who wrote a joyless isekai is not the average viewer. I am not an average viewer either. But my book is great, therefore our standards are below that of the majority. As long as the core audience loves the Tower of God, then no matter how many issues I have with the show don't mean a thing. And the core audience doesn't like the Tower of God. The ratings in Japan are bad, and unlike in the West, nobody hypes it there, because they don't like Korea. Therefore, it's a bad show, the majority doesn't like it, and there is not going to be another season, because it's from Korea. And if that sounds like a bullshit argument as to why the Tower of God is bad, it's not anymore bullshit, and when they insist a lizard chick looking at you is the most thrilling thing imaginable. Or my book being average. So much for different tastes when you want to include popularity as your definition for what counts as good. I get the whole argument of different strokes for different folks. But down to it, every single thing you do in your life has a few things for doing it right and a billion ways for doing it wrong. By definition, you cannot claim there are a billion different tastes about something, because that something works only when you do it in very few specific ways. An isekai type of a story is all about people adjusting and learning how to survive on an alien world. It is by definition action, adventure, exploration, and mystery. It's not a joyless documentary by a guy who didn't like my book. You can twist things around a bit, but not too much, because at the end of the day, it still needs to be an isekai. A fun adventure, not a joyless documentary, and that is why there isn't much relativity in what counts as fun. There are gold standards for everything, whatever I am telling you is helpful, and my book is great. Also, the Tower of God sucks because it's from Korea.
It's Subversion!
Deconstructing things is great because once you shift the sands beneath people's feet, and you remove like their frame of reference for what is actually good storytelling, what's good character development, you can just rewrite the rules to serve you in any way that you want.
Does demolition count as deconstruction? Feels like there's a difference, you know? Just being like, I blew up a house, I deconstructed it. Like,
well, it's deconstruction in the sense like the intent behind it is to destroy, but they frame it as deconstructionism because we want to pick apart the meaning behind it, but we don't. We're just going to say that because that makes it easier to frame as like intellectual inquiry. It's not. It's a calculated attempt to discredit and destroy people who created things that we'll never be capable of creating.
But you know what? In 50 years, the new intellectuals, the new historians, the new people trying to make their career in their name, they're going to be looking at the people who are writing right now and then deconstructing why they're wrong. There's no logic to it other than people trying to make a career.
It's Subversion!
Hey, a tweet that mentions me. That means I have to make a video about it because I'm that mature. Let's see what it says here. A lot of these people on the casual side like Gigag seem to be more engaged with the culture and sponging up new perspectives far more than most of the elitist crowd. Yes, because they are casuals, they have no steady opinions. They change every day. So, sponging up new perspectives doesn't mean they are doing something better, just means they haven't settled down. Which ironically amounts to these casuals building far more relevant and contemporary insights than insular elitists who build such demanding standards for good and bad they are unwilling to waste their time on new ideas. But culture doesn't wait for anyone. Whose culture are we talking about here? And why would I need new ideas if the old ones work just fine?
Like writing a book with the pages in literally any order. It's possible, and it sounds impressive when you put it like that, but the end result will be a very bland book.
It passes you by if you're not careful, and so the digibros and anime snobs and whatever of the world are too busy masturbating to their favorite directors from the 80s to notice what is going on here and now, which is just the sweetest irony. Yeah, it's so ironic that we are stuck in the 80s, and we don't like what's going on here and now, with progressives destroying everything with their new ideas, with epidemics not letting us go outside, and protests where people are pointing fingers at completely irrelevant things, and nobody knows what is going on anymore. Yeah, new ideas. We don't see what's going on right here and right now. We're just stuck in the 80s where things were working out. Why would we elitists want to open our minds to new ideas when the old ones were working just fine?
Why be confined? We don't need that structure. That structure is holding us back.
That structure has kept us going for thousands of years, damn it.
It's Subversion!
You know how the shonen turrets keep saying something we haven't seen before is for some reason amazing?
Never really seen done before.
Well, the exact opposite can also be said. It's shit because we haven't seen it before.
We had not seen up until this point.
Without further elaboration as to why something that is unlike anything we've seen before is better than something we have, that claim means nothing.
Like so which have never been seen before.
Down to it, something we haven't seen before should be translating to getting more out of something, as opposed opposed to getting less.
It's like nothing we've ever seen before.
And even that is not enough of an explanation, because then you need to elaborate what you mean by more.
And we haven't seen anything even close to that.
How are you getting more, and how is that better than what is out of the ordinary? Because the exact same claim can again be used for the exact opposite reason.
Which we've never seen before.
Why is getting more of something better than getting more of the same? Something simple, familiar, straightforward, and above all, easy to follow. Most shonen tards don't get the difference, and that is why they make a fool out of themselves.
For Naruto vs. Pain, Atsushi Wakabayashi decided to use a different animation style. The scene gained infamy because of how different it was represented. It was something we haven't seen before and didn't match the style according to some. The style incorporated in these fight scenes either appeal to you or it doesn't. It's that simple. Does the style take you out of the Naruto universe and ruin the atmosphere? Yes or no?
It's subversion!
A subversion is what you get when a show does something differently than what you expected, meaning it either subverted your expectations, so it was a you thing, not something the show did, or the show goes out of the way of its genre usually works, and jumps in a different genre instead of being part of that genre from the get-go. Thus, when you view a subversion through the lens of the type of story it was supposed to be, and you get something that doesn't follow what it was supposed to be, you don't get something better, you get something different, which can very well be worse, while still being a subversion. It can very well be trying to be something it's not, and thus getting stuck in the middle of two genres, not appealing to the demographics of either genre. As someone who likes puppet shows like the Dark Crystal and Thunderbolt Fantasy, I know they are not mainstream and never will be. They are too violent for kids and too bizarre for adults, so I know they are a very specific niche very few will appreciate. This doesn't make them subversions, it just makes them niche. Most subversions are not even the result of the creator planning to make a better version of what everybody else was making at the time. It was just him being stuck making a story in a magazine that doesn't let him write as he likes, and then slowly he adds elements he would have added since the very beginning if he had found a better deal in a different magazine. He could be stuck making Disney nonsense that force him to throwing a chick and make it lame, when in reality he wanted to make something like Game of Thrones. He would only be sneaking in something that is normally not allowed, and it would get allowed only if it sells a lot. Because this is what it comes down to, whether it sells a lot or not. Also, on paper, most short-lived manga series are also subversions. They don't follow the formula to such an extent that the intended audience doesn't read them. If you think the mediocre ones are what get cancelled the most, you are wrong. It's the ones that are very weird that get the axe very fast. As for the perpetually ongoing ones, they all begin in very mediocre ways because most people don't want something different, they want more of what they like, meaning more cookie-cutter titles within specific demographics. Only after a title becomes popular enough, it is allowed to mess with the formula. If not because the writer got bored, because the audience doesn't want a rehash in every single arc. And guess what? A title never becomes popular if it first doesn't execute well the done-to-death formula everybody already knows and likes. Execution around different things nobody cares about doesn't matter. By the way, there is an audience for people who want something different, but even then it's mostly people who grew out of a demographic but refuse to move to a different demographic. Because they know they won't have that many people to talk with, or they won't be making as much money when producing content about it. That is why so many creators use the term subversion instead of just watching stuff they actually care about in a demographic they are actually invested in. People who yell subversion are mostly those who refuse to move on. In conclusion, calling something a subversion is not necessarily positive. In fact, it means nothing. It's a buzzword for when someone wants to gas up a show by pretending there aren't similar shows out there, when there are, usually in a different demographic. Execution of an established formula is what matters the most, and not how much you break a mold just so you can use a different mold.